So we're back in the studio. So let's dive in. I have my MacBook laptop here as well as a Wacom tablet. This is my setup for when I travel. When I'm in my studio at home, I usually have a larger screen and a larger tablet. Because usually I am excited to go edit my images right away. I don't go through and make all my select because I want to get to the editing process and create some images. So I usually select what I like right off the bat, and so that I can have a chance to edit them. And then I'll go back again on the second round. And surprisingly, sometimes the second round, I find that I'm more adventurous in my selection. So I would totally see something that I did not even notice on the first round. And that could be very exciting. Okay, so let's look through the images that I've shot here at our location in the architectural setting as well as the natural setting. And I'm just gonna go back and see what images really strike me here. As you can see here, these are the shots from our parking lot shoot. And I'm just going through and see any of these one that really caught my eye. For example, this one, these light pattern really create an abstract, almost like a painting, Kandinsky-like pattern. I really like that one. So I just hit P for make a selection. And I'm using Lightroom here to make my select as well as do my initial round of culling. Okay, so that was one. And I'm going to go through, and here are the ones that we use our model. I do really like these. I kind of like the one where just showing her feet. I feel that create a nice abstraction against those graphic lines. So here's one I like. I really like the movement of these. Maybe this one, okay. And then I think I also really like some of these shots from the architectural setting. Oh, I really like these one where the model is standing there having this kind of contemplation moment, and I feel this really have an amazing mood, very tranquil. So I definitely like to consider one of these as my selects. Having a wider one will just give me more room for working with the images, so when I straighten the line, I can crop in further. So instead of using one more cropped in, I'm going to pick one that's further back so I have more room to play with. These other shots are when we're working with the model and she's walking against this very graphic line. And again, I mentioned like these shadow line, you can think of them as almost an architectural detail, as a physical element. So it's really fun to play with. I really like this kind of energetic vibe that she's exuding with her body language. I like it when kind of entering into the shadow line. It's kind of in-between state. That's really nice. And this is when we're playing with the line, interacting with it. These are really fun. That one has nice energy. I think these are really great. This have a very classic, timeless vibe. And the way that she's composed at 1/3 across the frame, it's a nice position for the placement of the model. It's just working really well against that diagonal line. So I'm gonna make that as one of my possible selects. Kind of modify the body to create a unique shape. And this is always fun to ask the model to come up with something new, to create a moment that is unexpected. So this is really fun when she's moving her body and arms in different ways. Okay, so the next part of the images are when we were at the beach and we were just capturing the landscape using this very similar technique. So for example, this rock, my first instinct is to capture the whole thing, showing the entire rock, but it feels very static and it's not very interesting. But as soon as I shift my composition to one side and focusing on the edges of things and how it connects, like for here, it would be the intersection between the sky and the earth, and it create a much more dynamic photo. And also this line could be the shallow line of the rock against the shadow. And again, these edges are really interesting to pay attention to because they can make a really great image. And then I also was observing when the waves crashing against the sand and as it receded, create this really beautiful abstract pattern as it washes away these lines of sand. And I feel like this is something unexpected. I have never really paid attention to this sort of bubble as it washes away. So I feel like this could be something that I can add as one of my images from that shoot. A lot of these smaller moments, they're not enough to make like one epic image, but I feel like collectively they can work well to tell a story as a series. And so these smaller moments, they work definitely better as a series. They could work as singular moments as well, but it's great to think of them as a family of images that together tell a greater story. These are just bubbles again, and they just look so graphic, almost like polka dots. And I mentioned to focus on patterns that you notice existing around you because they just create an interesting visual language. And these bubbles are a pattern unto themselves. And I think that's very interesting. And as I was shooting, I also saw human elements that was really interesting. And again, the human element add that sense of emotion and excitement. And the way that I framed this, as you can see, it's the girl is not in the center of the frame. I always weighted the image so there's plenty of negative space and it makes for a much more interesting and dynamic composition. Also notice patterns such as clouds and treat them as almost geometric shapes. These clouds, this oblong shape against the horizon, they're two objects. They're counterweight to each other. They're having a dialogue. That's very interesting, as well as this landscape is simplified into three simple shapes: the horizon, the stretch of cloud, and then another puff of cloud. This simplification, together, they create a very interesting composition. As the sun was going down, shapes becoming more like silhouettes, and these landform becomes almost triangular and playing against the horizon line. And this is my method of simplifying the landscape. Just think of them as shapes and how you can place these objects into a frame next to each other. Okay, so from here, let's see what are some of my favorites that I have selected so far. These are the ones that I will start editing and see how I can transform from here into the next stage of the images. So I'm going to look at the first set of images from the architectural setting. And I think I like this image because although I like this very graphic pattern, it doesn't have the sense of scale. By having that human element in there, it really gives a sense of scale to the photo. My library is something that I revisit over and over again, so it's not like I just go through once and then I put it away. This is something that I may revisit again in a week or month or maybe in a year and then see something completely new. So this is not something that is done once and over with. So let's bring it all into Photoshop and continue with our editing process.